Hey, worship teams, great to have you here today on the Worship Team Training Live podcast. We're so glad that you're here joining us. We got a fantastic show today, and we're hoping that none of it will burn you out. It's kind of the topic of our show, and we want to welcome, of course, our fabulous host that we have on the show, because this is a beautiful day, and these guys do absolutely incredible jobs in each and every way in their ministry. We're glad that they are here today with us. We have Swift Johnson. How are you, baby?
Good. Excited to be here.
We are excited to see you.
It's a new day in the neighborhood.
And that's a new mustache.
I'm trying to go a Timmons beer. But
you look great.
You got a long way to go, baby.
I'm working on it.
You look great, dude.
Stephanie Kelly, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm not trying to grow a beard. I'm trying to remove. Actually, I don't have any facial hair yet. I'm fine.
That was awesome.
Facial hair?
I don't have any yet. Praise the Lord.
That's good to know. You're coming in kind of grainy, so we're just going to work with it, and maybe there is hair actually there, and that explains the graininess.
Airport?
That's not a personal.
No, not at all.
Well, but
we're glad that you're here, and we're also glad to not see anything hanging up as a dress or anything behind you like you had before. So, Timmons, how you doing, man?
which Timmons are you talking to? If you look at Brady,
this guy.
I'm doing great.
But
Thanks for asking.
this guy.
that was your cue, Tony.
One of these kids are not the same. All right, what's up, Timmons?
I got to spend a whole weekend away in Nashville this past weekend with my wife. It was so great. No kid. I mean, we love our kids, but just us two. It was awesome. So I'm like, I don't know. You can't really do anything to hurt me right now. That's probably not true. Tony might be able to.
Yeah, Tony's always got something up his sleeve.
But I'm doing great, man.
That's great. Well, good to have you back. Glad you're here. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I just spent a few days in Nashville with Timmons. It was awesome.
Oh, that was powerful. That was real powerful.
That was tough for you, wasn't it? Very good.
Wow. That was rich.
Well, guys, glad that you're all here. And let's see, actually coming up, the news, some news items that we have coming down the pike and ready for you. We are doing, for those of you that are in the Hot Springs area in Arkansas, Arkansas, you got Little Rock, and you got a great town called Hot Springs. We're doing an awesome power workshop there at First Nazarene Church on June the 21st. That's a Saturday. So if you're in the area, please come out. Love to have you. And also, if you are interested in having a workshop from Worship Team Training, please let us know. We got some great guys on board, which I'm going to get to in a second. Also wanted to say thanks for all you Facebook friends and fans out there to the Worship Team Training page, friends of Tony Guerrero, Tim Timmons, Swift, and Stephanie. Our last show, we just went through the roof with comments. We just want to say thank you guys. All you those are on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. You guys have been watching us, and you're just fabulous. So thank you for all your help and your support for us. And we hope that these broadcasts that we do every other week will bring you things like talking dolls from Kiss, what Tony's doing. So anyway, we want to get back to our what we're saying here, and just also want to say great thanks to Mike Kyle and also Swift Johnson, everybody, because Swift and our good guy, Mike, this guy right here, Swift, is going to be helping us put some other workshops together, and we're glad to have him on board. So if you're interested, please let us know.
Hot Springs.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said Hot Springs. It was like a sneeze.
Hot Springs, people do sneeze there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the next episodes we have coming up, hire or not to hire in the worship band. Now, Tony, this goes back way, and Timmons, you were there with us also in our audio broadcast years ago. We addressed this topic, and this seems to be revolving quite a bit, so folks are going to bring that to you, as well as more worship leader problems, and then also following up another episode, doing secular music in the Christian church. I think Tony's going to capitalize on both those topics.
Yeah.
The last episode, we talked about why don't they sing. A lot of great points from each of you. We talked about, what are the spiritual things that are going on with people, what are the logistical things like volume or band or pastoral leadership or worship leader leadership, and that may be hindering the church from singing. So lots of good stuff. If you didn't check out that issue, please go back and look at the episode on the YouTube link. There's a new playlist for the Worship Team Training Hangout, so be sure to check that out. Now, so for today's topic is, how do we prevent burnout, or rather, how do we avoid it? When we say that term burnout, there seems to be maybe a little bit of the cringe that people experience because when you hear that term burnout, it's kind of generic, and yet it may apply, and it does apply differently to everyone. Now, we're not talking about the, I said logistics before in terms of why people get burnout, but really it's more of a spiritual and heart issue. And these are some of the things that we're going to tackle today, and love to hear each of your thoughts and opinions on it. So let's talk about the first point. And these were just kind of drafted up. These are not, when we say like the top 5 or 5 ways, we are simply saying that these are just things that have been relevant to us. They're not the absolute. Like I said, they apply to each person differently. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at our first one. Can't say no. Can't say no, and how do you say no? Tony,
How do you do?
How do you do? How do you learn, basically? So we'll just change that real quick. So Tony, go. What's your thought? How do you? What seems to be the issue there?
Well, I don't want to answer that one.
Okay, great. So Timmons, what about you?
And that's how you do it. That is how you do it.
That's right.
Oh, look.
And theme.
Go ahead.
Genius.
May come back to Tony, may not.
Oh, well, he was just showing you how to say no. So if anybody's wondering how to say no, Tony just nailed it.
He said, I don't want to. Yeah.
I don't want to do this. I mean, just for
That was
me,
a perfect example.
because
Go
Tony
ahead.
doesn't want to answer this.
I can't on principle now.
That's touche. And you probably shouldn't. Yeah, that was a problem for me early on. I think everything was a yes, because a lot of us in ministry are people pleasers. And man, if somebody needs something, I don't know. I just kind of want to like meet that need. Like that's kind of just part of me. But that also can be to my demise. Even now, more so as a family guy, where I've got 20 kids and a wife. It's just like I just can't do everything anymore. Even though I like don't want to hurt people's feelings by saying no. So honestly, I think one of the greatest ways of learning this is just by failing all the time at it and seeing, like, actually experiencing my own burnout and going, okay, here's what needs to happen in this next season. So I've been just trying to learn how to say no, and I've been doing a much better job with it and trusting that Jesus is at work, and I'm not the answer. That's been really helpful for me, that I'm not the king of the kingdom, he is. So, for me.
Awesome.
Right.
And Stephanie.
Hi.
Hey, girl.
I say,
Oh,
you
wow.
just gotta say no.
No.
I'm sorry, I just had to do that.
No, please.
You know what's awesome about that picture is I have the
Edited.
black tongue going on because of my Pepto-Bismol. Am I grainy?
Tell
Okay,
him no.
so less about Pepto-Bismol, more about you, Steffi. So what do you say? What do you say about the fact of saying no to people? Is that healthy? Is it not healthy?
I think it's healthy. I think it's absolutely necessary. I think before we say no, we should just say a quick prayer and say, can I do this and should I do this, rather than just, I'm not going to do this.
Like
But,
Tony.
right.
Well, I mean, I think for me too. I'm tagging in.
I didn't ask you. Hold on. Stephanie?
No, I just, I think saying no is a good thing. It's healthy. I think it's healthy and it's realistic. I mean, you don't want to ever be known as a no person. You don't really want to be known as a yes person, but I think a yes person is a little bit better than being a no person. But being a no person is important. That
I don't
doesn't
know.
make any.
No. I mean, one of my heroes.
This is a no person right here. This is a yes person right here. You were saying.
one of my heroes is he's been in the ministry for a long time, and he is I would say he's kind of known like he's hard to get a hold of. He's not great at getting back to people, but the guy is the best dad.
I don't always get your messages.
Right, so true, so true. I don't want to point, you know. But he is one of the best dads and husbands that I know. I actually would want to model my relationships after him. And when he's with you, he's just amazing. And so I part of that is like, no, you don't want to be known as a no person because he's kind of known as a no person. Yet, man, the things that he's saying no to means that he's saying yes to certain things, and to him that priority is more beautiful. And to me, as I look at his life, I go, I love that. Like the priorities that you're taking over these things is well worth it. So that you just sparked that as I thought about that.
Well, and can I just interject? I think what you were saying too is when he is with you, he's really present, and that's great. That's key. So when you are saying yes and able to do things, you're there.
Yeah, totally. That's a great learning.
Swift, how about you, baby?
Part of the issue we have being in the church is that every single thing that comes up for everybody who would ever ask anything of you is kingdom-based. It's lives are at stake and souls are at stake, and so there's also this added pressure that absolutely everything that goes on in the church is of the utmost eternal significance, and so even the most minor thing, suddenly there's I don't know no better way to put it, but there's this Christian guilt that comes on you that you are obligated to do this stuff because it's for the kingdom, and that is something you just have to learn how to recognize and just realize that the kingdom is not relying on you in that way to do every little thing that comes up.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's kind of like what I was thinking. You know, when you have this obligation of leading people, you kind of feel like it's your duty to make sure that you try your best to do everything for everybody, almost. And it's the Christian guilt, like you said. But there's times, too, where, like, at one season in my life where my family was missing out on me because I was putting in 10, 12 hours at the church, and I was doing every single Bible study, every single discipleship meeting, all of these things. But meanwhile, my kids are like, where's Daddy? So I had to reel that in, and my wife helped me learn to say no. Quick.
They're pretty good at that.
Yeah, they are. So if you're not ministering to your family, which should be priority, then how can you minister to someone else? I don't believe Christ designed it that way. But so you got to know how to say no to not the unimportant, because everything is important to that person at the time when they're coming to you. But you have the urgency and the important and the high priority, So you have to cipher through all of those things and just kind of decide what is important to you. And I was tagging in on Stephanie, what she was saying, and said that, praying about it. And I know that's cheesy. Hey, let me pray about that. But sometimes you really do need to pray about it.
Yeah.
Because some things get asked of you that you're like, man, that's a big task. Let me pray through that, because that's going to take a lot of my time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Our second point is being honest. So how does being honest help in the situation of preventing you or avoiding burnout? Tony, go.
Whenever I've taught classes or done workshops, and I ask people, classes on leading teams, primarily musicians, and I ask questions at the end, like ask for questions. For a long time, one of the most common things that I would get, I wouldn't get questions about my prepared notes and what I had been teaching. I would get questions like, well, I've got this guy in my band, the bass player, who just is always late every single weekend, or my drummer just won't show up to rehearsals, or my singer never learns the harmony parts, or all these things that have to do with personnel and people. And almost 100% of the time, if not really close to that, I was able to turn around and say, have you had that discussion with that person directly? Have you gone right to them and said, here's the problem, here's what you're doing, here's how it's affecting the team, here's, and have you laid out boundaries and consequences that you're willing to honor? And the bulk of the time, the answer is no, because people tend to want to avoid any kind of confrontation, and confrontation tends to feel somewhat anti-Christian,
Right.
and we want to be loving and be liked and all that stuff. And the Bible tells us kind of the opposite. And Matthew 18 is all about going directly to the person. I would tell you, the minute that you're telling somebody else about the problem that you're having with somebody on your team, you're breaking the first rule of Matthew 18.
Mhm.
Because you're really supposed to go to that person first.
With another Christian brother.
Yeah, and that's the that's been a huge thing for me in dealing with this issue. Is if I look at any kind of conflict or issue that I have to look at Matthew 18 and then say, have I been honest with that person before I start complaining about them?
Yeah. Well,
that's it for me. Matthew 18 is it for me.
Good, dude.
Well, there's no doubt that relationships can definitely burn you out, and by not being honest and letting things fester. I mean, that's a great point, Tony. Timmons, what do you say about that?
I thought that was wonderful. I think it's again, these are people pleaser. We have a lot of people pleasers in what we do,
Right.
And in the community, Christian community, that's kind of just like Tony said. It's like the taboo to disagree with something, or carefront. We even changed at the university that I was at. They changed confront to carefront.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. So it's just perfect. It's like we're gonna have a carefrontation right here because I care for But yeah, it's genius.
All right. What about? We need to move on to this next topic. Number 3 rather is won't take time off. So our next one is won't take time off. A person who will not relent. A person who will just not take a day to themselves. Stephanie, how important is that? What are your thoughts?
Well, when I was a younger, greener worship leader, I didn't ever take time off, and I felt like it was my call of duty to just be there and be on it. And 15 years later, I mean, a lot of those people I'm still connected with, but they're not in my close circle, and I wish I would have spent more time with my family during those moments of just being the martyr and being the hero.
Yeah.
Right.
They're doing okay. The Lord took care of them, but I didn't have to. I shouldn't have tried to be all things to all people.
Right.
So vacationing and getting totally turning off turning off all the stuff is really important, especially. And I was single in those days, and now that I have a husband and a dog and a cat that need me, I realize Dale's got to go on walks.
Dale is your husband?
Yeah, dog.
That's perfect.
Dale is not my husband, he's my dog.
Perfect.
And he has a really bad haircut like me right now.
Well, like I said before, the graininess is in the video, so we can't tell too much, so that's probably a good thing.
Okay.
Point number 4 is relationships.
Can I say something really quick on that last one that I think is important for primarily for musicians?
Go right ahead for interrupting me.
Thank you. Primarily for musicians to pay attention to. I learned this early on with my wife because she's not a musician, that it didn't make a lot of sense to her that I would come home from, this back when I was on staff, I would come home from 8 hours of doing music stuff and then want to go into my studio and relax by doing music stuff. And the issue that we are doing something related to what we love to do, like music for me it's not only my job and my profession, but it's also my passion. It's what I love doing, and in my off hours, I love being in my studio and writing and doing all this. And so, for the people around you, I think it's key that you strike that balance. One part of the balance is helping them to understand that when you're doing that, it's not like bringing your work home. That is a way that you unwind, is getting back to your music and doing all that. And that, for me, that was it more than, I wouldn't come home and want to watch the basketball game. I'd come home and want to get in my studio. So you do need to find a balance between that, but also help your loved ones understand that is your downtime sometimes. And it's confusing because, an accountant doesn't come home from the office and want to sit and crunch numbers, in their off hours. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Did she love you enough to care front?
Oh, perfect.
Awesome. So in relationships, we hit that pretty well. I mean, Tony, you said a lot about that, so I really don't want to belabor that point. But Swift, tell us what is the importance of mentors and accountability to help one stay straight and to help them prevent the burnout factor? What do you say on that?
I think it's very important because most of the time, like us when you're on staff somewhere and you're involved in all of the stuff that goes on along with church, you need someone that you can vent to and talk to. Well, maybe not vent, but you can talk about your confrontations that you had that day.
Confrontations? You can find somebody?
And plus, I mean, I'm almost want to go back a little bit and talk about the time that you need by yourself as well and blend that in with what I'm saying. Because you need that time off to get recharged and, spend your time in the Word so you can actually be used to your church. I mean, if you're like burnt out and tired and you're there every Sunday, it becomes mundane. And because we're all human, right? So, after a while, you're just like...
Yeah, most of us are human here.
Yeah, I thought Timmons is a beast, but
well,
he's constantly going. But anyway, so I think it's great to have someone that you can talk to and get some wisdom and kind of hold you accountable for what you do as a person and keep your integrity intact a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Swift. And final thoughts, Timmons, we haven't heard much from you, so...
Yeah, I would say my final thought, oh gosh, I just lost it. Ultimately, as I think about all the books that I've read on how to lead worship, on how to do anything, most of the times the first chapter is always saying you need to don't necessarily be in the Word, but be with the Word, as if Jesus is the Word, Mm-hmm. It's like... That's always the first chapter. In my whole life, I went like, chapter 2, perfect. I'll start at chapter 2. I just didn't want chapter 1 was like whatever. But burnout, there's no. I don't think there is possible burnout if we are walking with Jesus in step with with Him in the Spirit. I actually don't think it's possible. So I think that's the issue. I just avoided it all my life because I thought I could do it in other ways.
Thank you. Awesome, Stephanie. How about you? Final thoughts? Real quick.
I agree with that, and I just think also know yourself and know your boundaries and be able to articulate them and the reason why, and then I think people will respect that and the Lord will respect that, and you'll be respected as a better leader.
Yeah, awesome. Swift, how about you?
My final thought would be always put Jesus first in everything you do, and then that way, if you get to a point where you feel like you're physically burnt out, then you have something to lean on and lift you up, keep you strong.
Yeah. Awesome. Sorry about that. We lost your video feed for a second, but glad you're back. Tony, how about you? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to a general population of who's watching right now, because this won't apply to everybody. But if you're a worship leader or music director, you were probably hired for your musical talent. That's what the hiring team saw. They saw you up there leading and said, boy, that guy can sing like Bono. We're going to hire this guy. The crowd loves him. And that's really great, but 90% of the job you got hired for has nothing to do with your musical talent. And you were probably not trained in administration or running an office staff or scheduling or conflict resolution or human resources or administrating a music library or sound systems or leading a choir. And nothing will burn people out quicker than spending all your time doing stuff you're not good at. So get help in all of those areas. Get administration help. Keep learning. Go to workshops, read books about this stuff, learn how to do all those things that you don't know how to do, because that will burn you out quickly.
That's right.
Great. Beautiful.
So good.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you, guys. You know, a lot of great wisdom shared here from each of you folks, and y'all are fabulous. Just love having you here, and thanks. And guys, we just reiterate to you, worship leaders and teams, burnout. You know, when we say that, it is a serious condition of the heart and of the spirit, and that's exactly what we were communicating today, because God has greater plans for you. And this was said to me from Monty Kelso, in fact, who's been a great mentor in my life. He said to me that sometimes in ministry we get so busy pouring out into others, we often are faced with the question is, who is pouring into us? Mm-hmm. And if we are not being poured into, what else can we give to others as we're leading them in our ministries, in worship, in our relationships with our spouses, with our families? The list goes on and on. So the whole idea is that we keep spiritually fit, as Timmons had said, by walking with Jesus and being with him in the spirit with everything that we do. And to have that honesty, to have those boundaries, to say, no, this is where I end and this is where maybe somebody else will begin. And creating that is the safest and healthiest thing that you can do, among others, for keeping yourself in check for burnout. So guys, thanks for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And next coming up, June 18th, 2014, on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, we will have another podcast show where we're going to be talking about the hiring of bands or volunteering bands. And Tony's really going to be taking the shot there. So yes. Tony, Timmons,
yeah, I can't be there.
Swift, glad that you guys are here.
I'll be moving.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, y'all are totally great. Thank you so much again for joining us, worship teams and friends, and also Swift, Kelly, Timmons, and Guerrero. We appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you back at the next Worship Team Training Live podcast. Take care.
Ciao, ciao.